Welcome back to more UCL Fantasy content. This will be my team selection for Matchday 3 and I'll discuss my transfer plans for the upcoming deadline. Tune in for that live stream on Tuesday, 2 hours before the first kickoff of Matchday 3, and check out all my UCL Fantasy content like the best Limitless and wildcard teams, and also my chip strategy guide, which will give you a real good insight into the best times to use both the wildcard and Limitless. You can apply your own team situations to what I discussed there and determine the best match day specifically to use both boosters. Smash the like button of this video and subscribe for new. I promise to get this to over 200 likes and to keep on pushing towards 30,000. We're very close to 29k, which we're hoping to achieve by the deadline stream on Tuesday. And check all the other links in the description below for my Patreon and the championships for early access to my videos, amongst many other perks, the Discord server, UCL Fantasy League Draft Hound, as well as Spotify. Without further ado, let's jump straight into it. At the beginning of this season, there was this template goalkeeper duo of Blažević and Di Gregorio, but it's been an absolute disaster with no clean sheets kept between the both of them, and Di Gregorio considered a last-minute goal back in Matchday 1, or essentially in the final minutes, to wipe out that clean sheet, and in Matchday 2, he gets sent off against RB Leipzig, so now he is suspended for Matchday 3. He should return for the following game, but either way, we could see Perrin, another 4 million goalkeeper, take his spot as the number one in the Champions League this season. So I think Di Gregorio is a very easy sell, of course, and I would completely avoid that partnership of Blažević and the Italian. However, Perrin might start to enter our thinking, despite the fact that Juventus have conceded quite a few goals in the Champions League already so far this season. And there is another goalkeeper duo, which I discuss in the Best Wildcard Team podcast. In fact, 2 of them, so be sure to check out that video to determine the best goalkeeper pairing in UCL Fantasy. On a more positive note, my 4 defenders were very solid in Matchday 2, with Trent Alexander-Arnold, one of my free transfers in, getting 8 points courtesy of a clean sheet and ball recovery points, and even in Matchday 1, he got an assist against AC Milan, despite the early clean sheet wipeout produced by Pulisic, and Liverpool are looking really strong in the Premier League and Champions League, but there is the injury to Alisson up until November, and we'll probably see him return after that international break coming up next. So Keller will be in goal. He's been doing a good job, and he always tends to be a good backup, but you probably expect Liverpool to concede more goals now with the tougher fixture run in the Premier League, and they've got Arsenal away up next, and they've got RB Leipzig in the Champions League coming up. So I don't think the clean sheets will probably come as regularly as they have been recently, but I still think Trent Alexander-Arnold, with the ball recovery potential and the assist, is still going to be a great use of fantasy option and well worth that price tag of around 6 million. My next defender is Saliba, who was sent off over the weekend against Bournemouth as Arsenal lost 2-0 in that game, but he got 8 points in UCL Fantasy against Paris Saint-Germain with ball recoveries and a clean sheet, just like Trent Alexander-Arnold. And my third defender was Kubarsi, who only got 6 points against Young Boys, but it was a clean sheet. I'm a bit disappointed on the ball recovery front, but maybe later in the competition, we'll see him getting 3+ ball recoveries to get those additional points and get 7 and 8 pointers further down the line. And finally, Grimaldo also got 6 points courtesy of a clean sheet against AC Milan in that 1-0 victory for Bayer Leverkusen, and he got a massive return in Matchday 1 with the goal he scored against Feyenoord. Now, Frimpong has been slightly better in the Champions League so far this season, and in recent matches, he's been in better form, but honestly, it's kind of a coin flip between those two, and you might even want to go for the pair of them and really go for that attacking potential, and Bayer Leverkusen haven't conceded a single goal in the Champions League this season. My other free transfer Matchday 2 was Gittins, who is a 5 million midfielder essentially, and he also got points for being awarded a penalty, but in a 7-1 win over Celtic, that was extremely underwhelming, especially considering players like Adeyemi scoring a hat-trick. So I was very disappointed and underwhelmed by Gittins, but he is a cheap midfielder after all, and I did make a lot of points with the transfers of Trent and Gittins. They were much better than the players I sold back in Matchday 2. Next up is Joshua Kimmich, who only got 3 points against Aston Villa, but I still like him a lot in the long term, and at this price and below, there are other options, but I think Kimmich is the most dependable, and I could see Bayern Munich going very far in this competition, despite a few hiccups, of course, like that 1-0 defeat against Aston Villa. My third choice was Bellingham, who only got 1 point because he was booked, and he has been really disappointing this season for Real Madrid with no goals scored. And when you compare that to last season and the immediate impact he had, there is a massive difference in the goal and assist output, but I think those goal contributions will come eventually. He played a different role over the weekend as a right forward essentially in a 3-4-2-1, and Real Madrid picked up another victory in their quest for another La Liga title. And finally, the only midfielder who was impressive was Florian Wirtz, who didn't score or assist, but he got 7 points because of the Player of the Match award. He has been incredible this season, and he's only getting better and better over the years, and he's arguably one of the best football players in the world. My forward line didn't deliver in the way I expected or hoped for. Harry Kane blanked against Aston Villa, despite having a great record against them, especially at Villa Park. He wasn't able to build on that, and in the end, he was very ineffective against a resolute Aston Villa defence, and Emi Martinez was incredible on that day, making so many saves, and Bayern Munich weren't lethal in front of goal. And finally, Erling Haaland with a plum fixture was only able to get 1 goal, and that's why I switched to captaincy from the Tuesday to the Wednesday. But unfortunately, I picked the wrong captain, and it would have been better to have stuck with Erling Haaland's 6-pointer. I switched the armband to Harry Kane, who blanked, so it was a very disappointing week in the end. Only 50 points, and my rank doubled from around 50,000 to 102k. This is probably the worst I've ever been in a very long time. I'm talking about a couple of years now in terms of rank, but it's still very early on in the season, and a Limitless or Wildcard chip can certainly push me up the ranks. I've got both of them intact as things stand, and I'll discuss my transfer plans up next. And looking at the 2 free transfers I could use, I could still have a decent team for Matchday 3, but with Bayern Munich and Barcelona facing each other, and I've got so many players from both clubs. I've got Kim Min-jae, who was on my bench. He delivered 4 points. I've got the likes of Kubarsi and Yamal. It's going to be very difficult, I think, to get a lot of points from that specific match, and that covers almost half of my team. Even with 2 free transfers, and I trim that down to maybe 4 or 5 players, it's still going to be a lot. Di Gregorio is suspended, Blažević is just not a good UCL fantasy option, and there's a few other problems here and there. Harry Kane is facing Barcelona away, but he could still do something there, and Gittins is facing Real Madrid, and of course Bellingham is involved in that matchup. So I think the best course of action for my squad is to play the Limitless chip, and I'll show you an updated version of the best Limitless team coming right up next. But at the end of this podcast, I'll show you what I could possibly do with 2 free transfers, or also some alternatives on the Limitless chip. Let me know down in the comment section below what you're leaning towards in terms of chip strategy, and if you want to see when I'm looking to use the wildcard chip, then check out that chip strategy guide video I highlighted earlier. Let's get straight into the team selection portion of this video, starting with the goalkeeper. On Tuesday, the 22nd of October, there are 2 options that really stand out to me. Emi Martinez is one of them with a home tie against Bologna, and Aston Villa are another example of a team that haven't conceded a single goal in the Champions League so far this season. They're facing a Bologna side who haven't scored a single goal in this competition, but my alternative pick would be David Raya, and of course I'll show you this towards the end of the podcast anyway. I think it's between those 2 for my first choice goalkeeper on the Tuesday, and if it doesn't go well, I've got a decent backup on the Wednesday to get that clean sheet, despite having a away fixture, and you just never know what can happen on an away night in Europe. But at the moment, I think Emi Martinez is one of the best goalkeepers in Matchday 3. When building this Limitless team, I'm very conscious about the balance between the Tuesday and the Wednesday, so I'm going for some Tuesday defenders here, such as Hakimi with a home tie against PSV. I don't think PSG are the strongest defensively, nor is PSV one of the easiest fixtures you can ask for, but I think PSG can keep a clean sheet in this particular match, and Hakimi has a lot of attacking potential, and he can get ball recovery points in the process, so I think he's definitely worth a punt if you want to choose a defender. He's amongst the very best, but I think the best options would probably come from Arsenal, and Gabriel has the goal threat, the ball recovery potential, and Arsenal still have a very strong defence. It's tough to judge them in the Premier League because in 8 games, they've already got 3 red cards. You could argue at least 2 of them were soft as well, but I do like Gabriel in the long term, and I've currently got Saliba in my non-Limitless team, but I wouldn't mind going from him to Gabriel, and maybe, because Saliba will miss the Liverpool game over the weekend, maybe Arsenal will go for a different back 4 against Shakhtar Donetsk and try to build a centre-back partnership in preparation for that huge clash against Liverpool, which could also be very decisive in the title race. My final defender in the starting 11 could be Theo Hernandez, but I'm less sure about this pick. He missed the game over the weekend due to a suspension, and AC Milan actually won that game by a 1-0 scoreline. But Theo Hernandez isn't the most reliable because of injuries, and AC Milan are very suspect defensively from time to time, and I could see Club Brugge potentially scoring in this particular match. So I could see myself changing this particular pick and maybe going for a different defender, and it could be someone from the Wednesday, which could shift the balance to having more players on that particular day, the 23rd of October, and that means I've got less potential for my substitutions. the ideal kind of scenario and structure is to have 8 or 9 players on the Tuesday and then subbing out your lowest scoring ones for those yet to play. And that's why I always try to strive for, but it's going to be difficult with some of the Tuesday defenders not really filling me with confidence, like Theo Hernandez. I've got plenty of midfield options who play on the Wednesday, and one of them would be Mohamed Salah away to RB Leipzig. Now, he scored and assisted against Chelsea in a 2-1 victory on Sunday, and I could see Salah producing more of the same against RB Leipzig and also being right in the running for the Golden Boot, with Liverpool progressing really far in this competition. So I do like the look of him, but you've also got Jota, who might be injured for this match, and Arne Slot said it could be too soon for him, so we could see Darwin Nunez up front or potentially a different kind of attacking front line. I think Diaz, Salah and Darwin Nunez might be the most likely, but Gakpo has also been very impressive whenever called upon. My second midfielder would be Saka, assuming he's fit, and he was very close to making it on Saturday. Now, I did provide an injury update on the wildcard video, so check that out because I gave the exact quotes by Mikel Arteta, and I think he was very close to making that match, so I think he'll be available for Shakhtar Donetsk, and Arsenal are a completely different team without him. I know it's difficult to judge as they only played 30 minutes with 11 men, but they weren't impressive in that time frame whatsoever, and I think Saka's creativity, the dribbling, and also the goal-scoring prowess he offers really helps Arsenal give another dimension to their attack, and putting someone like Sterling or Jesus there is just nowhere near the same. So I think Saka will be available for this match and also in time for Liverpool, Chelsea and Newcastle in the Premier League, and that will give a massive boost to the Gunners. Let's now finish the midfield with a template option in Florian Wirtz, who's been in all of my wildcard and Limitless team videos so far this season, and he's been in my own team since the very beginning, and at 7.6 million, I would argue he's the best option, not just in the midfield, but across all positions in the game. He is facing Brest away, and they've been very impressive in the Champions League so far this season, but I still think Bayer Leverkusen will win this game and probably surpass them in the league phase table, as Brest are right up there in second at the moment. And finally, I'm going for Christian Pulisic as a mega differential facing Club Brugge at home. He got an assist over the weekend in that 1-0 victory for AC Milan, and he has been so consistent since the summer in the Copa America. He is scoring or assisting in virtually every single game for both club and country, and he's a mega differential who's going to really help you rise up those ranks. I'm fairly content with my forward line, but I could see myself making a change in this position because of the plethora of options at our disposal. Vlahovic is facing Stuttgart at home, who have a lot of injury problems right now, and Vlahovic has shown some good form in the Champions League and Serie A, scoring a brace in Matchday 2 against RB Leipzig, despite the fact that Juventus went down to 10 men. But at a similar price, you can go for Lautaro Martinez, Kai Havertz, and Ollie Watkins, not to mention Gyökeres, who is still an excellent choice in Matchday 3. But on the Limitless, price is irrelevant. You could go for the most expensive players in each position, and you don't have to worry about that whatsoever. Your team obviously reverts back to how it was before you activate the chip, and any transfers you made do cancel out, so hopefully that covers all your questions in regards to that. But I do discuss it in detail in the chip strategy guide, as I mentioned earlier. My second forward would be Erling Haaland, but he's been very disappointing with 3 consecutive blanks in the Premier League. That's the first time that's happened in his career, and also in the Champions League. He blanked in Matchday 1, only scored 1 goal in Matchday 2 despite a great fixture, but this is a home tie, and I could see Haaland scoring maybe back-to-back hat-tricks with Southampton at the weekend, and Sparta Prague are there for the taking. Man City could easily score 4 or more goals with Haaland being involved in the vast majority of them, so he makes an excellent captaincy choice, at least on paper. And finally, I'm going for Kylian Mbappe, who faces Borussia Dortmund at home, and they're top of the league phase table right now. Real Madrid lost in Matchday 2 against Lille, with Mbappe making a brief cameo off the bench, but he scored this weekend, and he's been fairly consistent with the goals and assists, with a lot of penalties for Real Madrid so far this season, and I could see him getting a decent return in this home tie. The same goes for Vinicius Jr., but if I had to pick one of them, it would be Mbappe, who is playing down the middle and getting the bulk of the big chances. I like this 15-man squad overall. It's very strong, but of course, I'm only showing you the starting 11 right now. Let's talk about my captaincy and the bench, which is so important in UCL Fantasy. On the Wednesday, I will likely go for Sommer as my second choice goalkeeper, with Foden, Gvardiol and Frimpong ready to come on for my lowest scoring players on the Tuesday. So no matter what you do, make sure that those on the 22nd of October are in your starting 11 and pick a captain from that particular day If they don't perform, you don't even need to sub them out. You can just switch to captaincy. But in terms of your low scoring players overall, you can then sub them out for those yet to play to maximize your chances of getting points. I think a double or triple up in City is certainly viable. It's just a question of rotation and will the likes of Foden and Gvardiol start? I personally think Foden will, as he was benched against Wolves before getting the winning assist for John Stones in the final minute. And Frimpong or Grimaldo is a 50-50 call. As I mentioned earlier, I might go for Frimpong because he's in better form, but at the moment, I think both of them are just incredible. Use your fantasy options. In terms of the captaincy, I'm currently looking at Saka on the Tuesday if he's fit, but if necessary, I'll switch it to Erling Haaland on the Wednesday. And in terms of how many points do you really need from your first choice captain, I think 8 points or above is certainly enough to keep hold of it. And with someone like Haaland playing on the Wednesday, you might even want to switch it with 8 or 9 points on the board. But I personally would stick with what I have, as Erling Haaland isn't in the best of form at the moment. But with those fixtures coming up in the Champions League and Premier League, I think Haaland is going to score a lot of goals and break this mini goal drought he's currently on. So that's the 450-man squad on the Limitless as things stand. But let's now discuss some other aspects and alternatives for this chip. If I were to go for different goalkeepers on the Tuesday and Wednesday, I would consider David Raya and Ederson, because apart from that, you might go for Oblak against Lille at home, but I'm not too confident in the Atletico Madrid defence. And you might also want to go for the Atalanta goalkeeper, but you've got the likes of Sappacosta, Kolasinac if he's no longer ill. You've got plenty of options there to cover Atalanta defensively, but Trent Alexander-Arnold is still an excellent choice. But RB Leipzig away, I could see Liverpool conceding in that fixture with no Alisson between the sticks. I could also go for Saliba instead of Gabriel as an alternative, or any Arsenal defender, maybe Calafiori will be another alternative. Also Grimaldo instead of Frimpong, and Bastoni to cover Inter Milan instead of Sommer, but you might want to double up on Inter Milan defensively. And I've also got a few other choices here, like Watkins and Lautaro Martinez up front, but there's Kai Havertz, Vinicius Jr., and several others like Gyökeres, who I've mentioned earlier as well. Harry Kane and Lewandowski remain excellent choices despite facing each other, and that's a very tough game to call. It could be a draw or maybe a high-scoring thriller, but you just never know. That's a very tough game to predict. It could end up being a tactical battle and very cagey and low-scoring, so I would probably avoid most Bayern Munich and Barcelona players in that match day, but my favourites would be Lewandowski and Harry Kane. I think the rest in the midfield and defensive line are probably worth skipping for match day 3, but Musiala could be back for this game. He's a quality player, and on his day, he could make the difference. And Yamal and Rafinha have been excellent this season, with Rafinha showing a lot of consistency since March. So as you can see, I've got a pool of players I'm considering for the Limitless chip. I still think Bellingham is decent, but his form is very concerning. Only 1 goal, and that came for England during the international break. He hasn't scored whatsoever for Real Madrid this season, but maybe he'll score his first against his former club on Tuesday. So that kind of breaks it down and gives you an insight into the players I'll likely go for on the Limitless. There will be further changes, I believe, to my Limitless squad, and I'll finalize my team during the deadline stream on the Tuesday. But let's now talk about how my team would look like without the Limitless chip. And spoiler alert, there is a massive difference, and on paper, I could see myself getting many more points with this chip. With 2 free transfers, not all hope is lost, and it's not like I absolutely have to use the Limitless chip, but I see a massive difference between that 50-man squad I showed you and what you can see on screen, with Blažević and no second choice goalkeeper at the moment, with Di Gregorio suspended for matchday 3. I still like Trent a lot, despite Alisson not being in the side, and Kelleher is still a good choice, but obviously Liverpool are more vulnerable to conceding more goals. Gabriel and Saliba are excellent choices. There's not much to really split the two, and I've currently got Saliba, who can get ball recoveries and a clean sheet against Shakhtar Donetsk. I've gone for Grimaldo here, and it's honestly 50-50 between him and Frimpong, so either one is absolutely fine. So my defence actually looks fairly solid, but Kim Min-jae is facing Barcelona away from home, and I've got Kubarsi against Bayern Munich at home, so that kind of ruins that option, and my second choice goalkeeper is lacking. Bellingham is still decent against Borussia Dortmund. Yamal and Wirtz, of course, are good choices, especially Wirtz, who is currently in my Limitless thoughts, but going for Gittins against Real Madrid, I'm not really feeling that. Harry Kane away to Barcelona, he could score, but I don't see a very high ceiling for him in that match, so I think the Limitless is perfect, because you'd want to keep Harry Kane long term, but skipping for his toughest game during the league phase. Gyökeres is actually a very good choice here with Sturm Gus away from home. And also Erling Haaland is in my limitless thoughts. There's no shadow of a doubt about that. Despite the lack of form, he's got the fixture and the high ceiling to really reward those that stuck with him. But I think the vast majority of people in UCL Fantasy will go for Erling Haaland. As for my bench, of course, I covered most of them already, but Kimmich would be the other one, and he's facing Barcelona away from home. So 2 free transfers, this could be somewhat decent, but it would fall quite short to those playing the limitless chip, and I don't want to be left behind after a disappointing match day 2, one of the worst match days I've experienced in a very long time in UCL Fantasy. And the captaincy, of course, would be quite simple. On the Tuesday, I'd go for Bellingham, and on the Wednesday, Erling Haaland, but I'd rather avoid that and play the limitless chip this week and really bolster my 50-man squad. Thank you very much for watching this video and listening to this podcast. If you enjoyed it or found it useful, then be sure to smash the like button and subscribe for new. Our aim is to get this video to over 200 likes and to keep on pushing towards 35 subscribers and beyond. Follow me on Twitter and Instagram, DylanRCM, and check all the other links in the description below for my Patreon and the championships for early access to my videos, amongst many other perks, the Discord server, UCL Fantasy League, Draft Hound, as well as Spotify. Leave a 5-star review on my podcast. It would go a long way to support my channel. I wish you all the best of luck for Matchday 3 and the rest of the season, and I'll see you next time.